The reading thing. Some things in life are habitual. To not do those things, to not do that thing, to not participate in that thing, to not be wholly involved in that thing would seem strange. And there would be an empty void happening all the time to not be involved in that. Mine is reading. I blame that on my mom. When she got me the Encyclopedia Britannica when I was a child. There's a long story behind that of child abuse by the school district. But it keeps it from hurting my nose. Yeah, reading's always been an addiction because what I found was by reading, you can choose your author instead of the author targeting you with his style and whatever he's writing about, you know. That's a product he's producing. I see great value in that because a great author can take you places that no level of special effects, if you have an education that is, no level of special effects can keep up with what your mind can conceive. And you learn very quickly how to discern the wheat from the chaff or the cream from the scum, because the cream floats to the top, but unfortunately so does the scum. And learning how to tell a lie from the truth is not that hard. I mean, unless you are psychologically, affected in some way, like the flat earthers. I watched a guy the other day having a discussion with someone who is an educator, and no matter what the educator said, the other guy just blew it off as a non-answer, and then what if'd him every time. And no matter what the flat earther said, of course, as we all know, is not true. This person appeared to need to defend it. And that's because he's been educated by others and not by reading. He's been told what to think and what the truth is. We are all guilty of that to a degree, me included, or me especially, whichever. It's important that you learn to discern the truth from a lie or an almost truth. Also, how to read something where you understand what's missing from the story, right? If someone gives you evidence and there's nothing pertaining to this, that is a hole that needs to be investigated first, because you can tell as much about a person from what they don't say as from what they do say. I had a friend once I knew for 10 years and I didn't know he had children, a son and a daughter. He never talked about them, never mentioned them, nothing. I thought that was the strangest thing. And from that point on, I really did view that individual differently. Because that's a serious, something's there. Psychologically, what you need, we just do things to protect ourselves. Mine was an abusive childhood, and then being abused by the school, by the school district I was in at the time. Basically, today that man would be arrested, and he would serve a long prison sentence. Just a few photographs of my body. a jury would have convicted that man like that and he'd have been in prison. That's why they had to do away with corporal punishment, because some of those fuck dicks got off on that shit. If you can't tell a truth from a falsehood or an outright lie or a misconception or misrepresentation of the truth, then you're always going to be at the mercy of people who are going to explain that to you. They're going to say, oh, well, this is what it means. And you don't reach your own conclusions. It's vital that you reach your own conclusions by seeking out information from people who don't have fucking skin in the game. A guy who's been doing ice cores, that's what he does. He does ice cores. He doesn't give a fuck if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a middle of the road, a greenie, oil executive. He doesn't give a fuck. His job is to drill ice cores and then to store them in order, okay, so that they can do gas and other tests on the air bubbles in the ice and this type of thing and the sedimentary layers, and they get information from that. That's all they do. If you get your information from that person, the odds of it being true in all aspects is very high. If you have an organization that wants to charge you $15 a month to belong to it so that you can help fund somebody in their green energy whatever experiment or device, that's a matter of trust. And you need to be able to discern, should I give this guy my $10 or not? I mean, the greatest shill in history has been pulled off the last 4 years by a top government official. You have to be able to know the truth when you read it. And reading as a habit can help you do that. The artist, some artists can take you to a place and make you believe it exists because their story is complete. And that's the difference between, a great writer and a crappy writer, is that there's no holes. You want to ask a question about this. Well, how do you make this gigantic fucking mass move? And they tell you in a very scientific and clear explanation that this is how they would see it done. It's not how it has to be done, but that's their vision of how it would be done, and you can appreciate that. And you can believe that they believe that's the truth. See what I'm saying? If you want to read something on climate change, on the other hand, that has to do with what are the true figures, what is and what is not included in reports that are produced by the United States or the UN or anyone else. What information, what packets of information are included in the predictions? And why I talk about the acceleration effect and why the models are always outdated by years. By the time the study is finished, it is outdated, and it is so far outdated that scientists become alarmed. And now they're using the word terrified. But you don't hear about that on the news every night because they're basically owned by oil companies. See? Every night we should have a story on an ecological disaster or solution. Either covering what's going on every day, which is horrifying, or talking about solutions and do a every other night thing. Tonight we show this is what's happening now, and tomorrow we do a show that says this is what we're hoping to do and what we could do to mitigate some of the problems we have with climate change. If you heard that on the 6 o'clock news every night, then you could trust it and believe it. But when you don't hear anything except these little blurbs, little 30-second little sound bites that they do to show, yeah, look how green we are. When in reality, so methane coming from the northern part of our planet, which is basically the upper 25% to 30% of our planet, is producing methane. Gigantic amounts of methane. It's a minimum of 25 times more efficient as a greenhouse gas. Minimum. Some people say many hundreds of times. That information is not included in part of the forecasting models. Now, how is that possible? I found that out simply by reading about it. Well, what are you fucking doing about it? And what information is included in your report? Methane blowholes and the methane from permafrost and all of that melting that's going on is not part of the model. It focuses on carbon dioxide. Yes, it focuses on quote unquote other gases, but you see, pretty soon methane will be a much larger problem than CO2. That's the truth. I know this is the truth. And then simply looking at that and then logically thinking, okay, so then that's going to cause this, and then that is going to cause this. And just the feedback loop is just part of that, where more methane, more warming, more methane from more permafrost melting, more warming, which means more permafrost melting. Just besides that cycle starting, and it has already started, okay? They're putting freezers in the ground up there for the pipelines and shit now because so much is melting, okay? Whole towns are starting to sink and become lopsided. Forests are falling over. It's so much more worse than they're talking about, and it's not included in the models for predicting climate change. Why? Why? See, this is why Greta Thunberg, this is why, see, she understands, she sees that. She sees the progressive acceleration and the fact that nobody's doing anything about it other than just lip service. She sees that, okay? She understands that very, very clearly because she looked for the truth and she found it. It's not hard. You read the right information from the right sources and you will be fucking terrified. Do you make your choices by what you read or by what you hear? If you go by what society wants to feed you over this little box or that box or whatever fucking box it is, if you choose to believe that is the picture of the world as it exists today, you are hopelessly lost. You have absolutely no idea what is coming, what the future of our children are going to be. You have no idea how terrifying and difficult and how difficult it's going to be. There may not be, and I keep looking, there may not be solutions to this other than putting large shades in space to actually physically shade the planet to cool it back down. And that holds so many dangers in itself. Then we need infinite energy sources to process our atmosphere 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with massive machines that are the size of cities to try to make our air breathable again. Every penny and resource that the world has from every country will have to be focused on doing those things for our species to survive. That is what I see as an end game if we make it through the barrier. What I see as an end game if we don't make it through a barrier, which is again just from reading every day, okay, since I was a kid, I understand how the world works and how difficult and reluctant it's going to be to get off to this fucking habit that it has on carbon because of this. So many people that are in power and in control and have authority are making money on that very thing. So knowing a little psychology, knowing just a little bit of how man thinks, humanities, a little bit of social knowledge as to the difference between an individual and a crowd of individuals. How we got to a point where 1% takes 99% of everything. I mean, it's a very complicated thing. It's many, many layers. And you have to read a lot. But so slowly but surely, this very firm and solid picture, solid fucking picture starts to take shape. Solid. Not a maybe or an if or this could happen, that could happen. No, solid fucking pictures start to form. You've poked enough dots where it's no longer just random dots. You've put enough dots down where now you see a picture of Jimi Hendrix that's fucking perfect. Looks exactly like him. That's how information is. And I've put enough dots down now where I see a picture I don't like. And then I think of my near-death experience and how horrified I was at things that I was shown. You see, we will either destroy ourselves rather quickly through nuclear conflagration, or we will make it through the barrier and spend the next 300 to 500 years fixing our planet. And understanding that it doesn't matter what your politics or what you look like, color of your skin, the shape of your face, how tall you are, whatever language you speak, that we're one planet. And my hope has been and always has been, as you know, is a greater intelligence landing and saying, look, we've seen this before and it ends like this. And they show people worlds being destroyed and billions of lives being snuffed out that could have created good information, love, understanding. You know what I mean? Every time you have a loving thought for someone, that benefits the universe. I want you to know that. That, I was told, that's okay to let people know, of course. So read more. Don't listen to these fucking talking heads on TV. No matter what blend or flavor of newscast you like. Okay, if you believe in thermometers, then you believe in climate change. You just don't know it. And now you need to educate yourself on how the fuck do they know what the atmosphere was like, 20,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago? How the hell do they know that? I know there's a limit because of the depth of the ice and the way it continually changes and cycles, but I think it's close to 250,000 years they can go back accurately. And they simply test the air bubbles that are trapped in the ice. They know exactly what the atmosphere was. And when you see, when you see that carbon line go like this, and it's got a few zigzags as the planet's breathing and going through cycles, then it goes straight up. Okay, that should scare the shit out of people, but it's not talked about. You have to read about this. You're not going to see it coming over the box. Any of the boxes or screens or flat screens or whatever it is, you're not going to get that message. And so otherwise things already would have changed. Things already would have changed when we got rid of hydrofluorocarbons. Yeah. That was 1975, somewhere in there. 70, yeah, somewhere in there. Because everyone was threatened and everyone was scared, and we said we got to get rid of fluorocarbons. We just have to fucking do it, and we did it. See? Because everyone was scared, and it was something that no one could dispute. There it was. And we're worried about our fucking ozone being destroyed and the world ending, and everyone said, okay, we're going to stop this. But you notice that's not happening now. It's a slow, like moving through concrete, trying to get progress to stop the insanity of poison in our atmosphere, warming our planet, causing a multitude of knock-on effects that are feedback loops. They're not just, oh, you do this and the water gets higher. This is like, no, you do this and your atmosphere is filled with fucking methane. And it's not included in the fucking reports. When I read that, I was shocked. I said, how could you leave out? I mean, every possible resource should be looking at getting accurate and clear information so that the next model we produce is not years behind and will terrify people. We want to see the real report of what's going to happen when you start factoring in that the upper 25% of our planet is going to produce gigatons of methane every day, and that you need to tell people this is what's going to happen when we add this into carbon dioxide. How warm is the planet going to be? How bad is the weather going to change? How much energy is going to be in the atmosphere? And at that point, the world will either get together and save itself or it will destroy itself. There's two ways. Just like my near-death experience, there was two ways. I destroyed myself and I saved myself. It's one of the two. There's going to be a Y in the road, and humanity is going to decide we're going to save our planet or we're not going to save our planet. But you're not going to get educated about what the truth is by watching any flat screen or a box anywhere, okay? Unless that flat screen is just simply this really dry and factual information from a guy who does nothing but fucking drill ice cores for 15 years and then publishes all of his fucking data as accurately as he can, and the truth is right there for you to understand. Not hard. You read about islands now where the shore, their island is basically eroding away. A nation that used to exist is now no longer going to exist because of erosion. So the water doesn't have to rise up 20 feet to eliminate this island. It simply has to rise up 1 foot to eliminate this island. And people are at their doorways with these sandbags making a barrier so that at high tide water isn't coming into their hut. People are already being affected. Bangladesh, people that used to grow rice are now growing crawdads and shrimp because there's now 6 feet of salt water there. People forget about subduction. There's so much that isn't talked about on a daily basis when it comes to climate change that you are going to have to educate yourself. So that is my rant for the day. I got hooked on reading and I think it saved me. I was pretty fucking bored. 1973, just before I started flying every day, that kind of got my mind off of the world. But by the time I was 14, I was looking at the world with jaded eyes already. I could see, oh fuck, this is how this works. Oh my God. And I was really, because even at that time I was still very heavily being bothered by my near-death experience. It was I had seen and experienced things that brought it into focus and made it absolutely clear that it was a real experience, as I'm searching desperately to find an answer out of that. Yeah, start reading and make sure you pick your sources where they don't have skin in the game. Okay? If you talk to a plumber in a bar, you're going to hear all kinds of things that you're not going to hear when he comes to do an estimate at your house. So pick your sources and don't cherry pick. Oh well, this guy will say what I want to hear. Okay, You get the Bland guy, Mr. Bland. He just produces data. Okay, and data doesn't lie if it's, if it's accumulated accurately and diligently. Okay, data doesn't lie. You can make your own assumption from that. If you know that this is the temperature ice freezes at, this is the temperature, right? If you know those basic things, you can go, oh, fuck, we're in trouble. But you see, the lie is, and what you have to read deeper is the fact that, well, why don't they take into account the 7,000 blowholes of methane up north? How come we're not hearing about that on the news where every night we're going, look at this giant fucking hole? You know what I mean? 100 feet deep, just a giant gaping hole with material blown out. There's so much methane being produced up here. You're going to have to read about that. So maybe that would be one of the first things you'd look at is methane blowholes.